I'm gonna wait for you to get in the frame. Hi guys, welcome to another episode.
Was that yours?
Yeah, it wasn't. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the After Hours podcast. Today we have a very special episode today. We are interviewing Coach Marschka from the Charles wrestling team, the wrestling head coach, and we also have Brooks with us today, AJ and Shalom.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of
Go
course.
ahead.
No, I said thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Of course, anytime. So, I wanted to get it right into it actually. So the personal journey and everything. So how did you first get into wrestling back in like the day, and like how did you get into the coaching of it?
Well, in middle school, they started up a wrestling team, or just like a little spring event where it had like 6 or 8 weeks of just introducing the sport. One of the coaches and teachers at the school was pretty new to the school, so he's a coach and a wrestler. So I got my feet wet in middle school during 7th grade. 8th grade, I'm not sure if they did it or not. In 8th grade, just don't remember. And then I didn't do it in 8th grade. And then 9th grade, went to the high school. Our wrestling coach was also at the high school now, but he was my elementary PE teacher before he got transferred to the high school. So I ran into him again, and he taught me into coming out. And, the rest is history. Been doing it for, nearly 35 years now.
Wow.
So, in terms of coaching, I knew that when I was probably 19 or 20 years old, I wanted to coach high school, So when I finished high school, I went on and wrestled a year in college and came back and finished up. And I knew I wanted to get it back into coaching and be a part of it. So that's part of the reason why I went to education. And picked a subject I liked and enjoyed, science and nature, and decided I was going to be a science teacher and coach wrestling somewhere. So
Nice. I love that.
So, who was like your toughest opponent you ever wrestled? If you have one?
oh gosh, there's been so many tough ones, especially through college, but while I was in college. But there's a couple that just back in high school that really stand out. I had this one kid from Titusville High School that I beat him every time we wrestled, but it was always a bloodbath. I mean, it was a very physical match and a close match. We would just physically beat the heck out of each other. He was so tough, so strong, but I was just able to out-slick him a little every match. That one always stands out. And then my state semifinal match my junior year, I had a kid, take me down or got on top of me in the second period, put a leg right in, and he rode me out for a whole 2 minutes. I could not get him off me, and I ended up losing 3-2 to that kid. But he was the toughest, rider on top, and just toughest opponent that I just couldn't escape from my junior year. And I can remember in high school just being a really good top rider. He ended up winning the state championship that year. He won his finals match, but he was so tough. But those are two that stand out from high school the most.
Yeah. So was there like a match any time in your high school that like totally changed your mindset about wrestling?
Oh gosh. Yes. Yes. And it was my senior year finals match at Region, because I was wrestling a kid who I'd beaten multiple times that year. And I was a much better wrestler than him. I think I went into the match a little arrogant, a little cocky, overconfident, and he ended up catching me and beating me. And it really changed and made me really think, and I try to tell this to the boys today. Doesn't matter if you beat the kid in the past, anything can happen. People get better. If something happens, you slip up, you make a mistake, and it can cost you a match. So it really showed me at that point, if you're not on top of your game every second and you go in there thinking that you've got it already, not going to be a problem, and you could get bit right in the butt real quick, because that humbled me really quick, losing that match to him when I'd already beaten him 2 or 3 times that year. And it was kind of changed a lot. So as good as I was, and as better than him that I was and I'd shown in the past, I just kind of let it get to me a little bit, and things can happen, and you got a little humble pie there.
I have a question. What was the hardest season you had to push through?
As a coach or a wrestler?
Both.
Well, as a wrestler, it was my freshman year in high school, because we had a really good team, and I know might talk about that later on. But my high school team, my freshman, sophomore, junior year, we won state championship. My senior year, we were state runners-up. So my freshman year, I'm wrestling and competing and practicing every day with high-level state placers, state championship varsity guys. And I was just a JV guy, really a first-year wrestler. So I was getting just eat up every day. I remember at one point, I was like, I'm done. I didn't come to practice for like 2 days. And Coach DiAgostino hunted me down and said, where you been? And I said, I'm tired of getting beat up, man. And I was only about 110 pounds my freshman year. And I was like, I said, I just don't know if it's for me. And he's like, he taught me back into it. And I had to persevere, suck it up. And I'm glad I did, of course, because he taught me back into it. Because I was so close from quitting that freshman year from getting just throttled on a daily basis by all these good wrestlers. As a coach, I would have to say it was in 2019 or 18. We had one returning state qualifier on our team that year and a very young squad, and we had a rough season. We did not win a lot of duels. We did not have a lot of individual placers, and my only saving grace was like, all right, I got this kid who qualified for state last year. Let's get him through the state tournament this year, and hopefully we'll get 1 or 2 more through. He ran into, due to bracketing, a kid in the constellation semifinals. He had to beat to go to state. He lost. And the kid that got 4th, we had already beaten, and he just, because of bracketing, he didn't get to go. So we did not have a state qualifier that year. So that was a really, really rough year for me as a coach. Only year in 23 years that I've coached that we haven't had state qualifiers. So that was, probably my toughest season as a coach.
So what would you say is the biggest thing that people get wrong or like misjudge about high school wrestling?
Still some of the same old stuff, that it's just a lot of weight cutting. I don't want to lose 30 pounds or 20 pounds or cut any weight at all, or I don't like the singlets, I don't want to wear those things. We don't cut that much weight anymore. Back in the day when I was in high school, yes. I mean, we were cutting 20, 30 pounds, sometimes on a weekly basis, some of the kids. But, if you started the season at 150, you were probably a 125 pounder by halfway through the season. These days, a lot of kids, if they're overweight and out of shape, they just start losing weight during our practices. They're so intense and they're so hard. I mean, we had a kid that weighed 200 pounds at the beginning of last year, a freshman, and he was weighing 170, 165, 170 by the end of the season within 3 months. And he was still eating. He wasn't cutting any weight. He wasn't starving. So a lot of people think they got to starve and be, cut a bunch of weight. And it's just, you're usually going to shed some pounds anyhow, just getting in shape. And, some people will cut weight. They want to be the strongest in their weight class. And so they'll sacrifice a little bit to be the bigger one. And they may cut 8 or 10 pounds off of their once they get down to their competing weight. They might drop another weight class, but it's not drastic like it was in the 90s or early 2000s and prior to it. Plus there's the federal high school federation regulations that prevent you from cutting as much weight. So, it's not even possible anymore. Everything's computerized, and you got to put all the data and information in there, and it tells you what you can cut weight. So, I think that's the biggest thing, because that's still that. I don't want to cut weight. No, you're not going to have to cut weight. You can still eat. You're going to lose weight if you're working hard because we burn so many calories. But, that's still probably one of the biggest things.
Okay. So how did you learn possibly like your biggest lessons as a wrestler? Like
by losing. Yeah. I think most of your lessons are learned in just about anything, just by losing and failing. Because it drives you, it'll drive you to quit and give up, or be complacent and happy with being average or losing, or it drives you to get better and learn more. And that's what I tried to apply when I was wrestling, as well as, and even more so as I matured and got older as a coach. If we're getting beat in certain positions and we're losing in certain positions, I need to figure out what do we got to do to get better and win those positions. always researching technique, always watching videos, trying to see if we can get an edge or learn something and picking up stuff. So, and you only get that drive by losing, by failing, by defeat. So most of my lessons that I've learned, and that's what I try to tell the wrestlers too, you know, it's great to be undefeated. It's great to win everything, but you got to have some failure in there. You got to be beaten and lose in position, so you get that extra urgency and drive to figure out what you did wrong or what you can do better to succeed even more.
Was there any wrestler you coached that just blew you away of how much they've improved?
Every year we see somebody that impresses us from the freshman year to the senior year. You know, Coach and I talk about the freshmen sometimes, and we'll make those sides. But I would say, you know, we're going to get a state qualifier by his senior year or a state placer by his senior year. And one will say, no, it's not going to happen. One will say, yeah, it's going to happen. And then just to see what happens over the transition of 4 years. And every year, you know, that there's somebody on there that really exceeded expectations. You know, this year, if I had to say we had one this year, it would be Hayden Smith. You know, never stepped foot on a wrestling mat his freshman year. And having the physical tools, being a strong kid, having to learn to be flexible and having the fluid and the technique, and then going 1 and 2 at Regents last year to winning a state medal this year was a huge improvement. And it's just, you know, and that's his dedication. You know, his work ethic and his dedication got him to that point. And having opportunities to get better. And so, you know, it's one of those, well, I could go back through the years and just say, yeah, this kid, you know, Addison Blackwell, kid we had graduated in 12 or 13. So weak and unathletic as a freshman. Hope he's not watching. But ends up being a region champ, state qualifier for us the senior year. And it was like, he's on our wall of fame in the wrestling room. It was like, never would have thought this kid would have been a region champ and a state qualifier if you saw him his freshman year walk into that wrestling room. So it was pretty awesome.
So do you have like a high school wrestling memory that you'll never forget?
It was probably winning that 3rd state title as a team, you know, getting a 3-peat and getting you know, the school got us these rings that said, you know, 3 times. It had 3 little fake diamonds on them. And, you know, that was huge, you know, to be a part of that state championship team my junior year. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, also winning the Rotary tournament my senior year and getting, you know, one of the outstanding lightweight awards. That was a big thing too as a wrestler. You know, so
Nice. So I'm going to move on to like the coaching and mindset of the wrestling.
Okay.
So how do you get like teams like high schoolers to stay mentally tough when matches get really rough?
gosh, you got to train for that just like you train your body. The mental toughness is that kills that, you know, that causes more losses than I think the physical toughness, because people get into a bind, they get in their head, and trust your ability, trust what you've been drilling, trust in your moves is what we try to tell them. Don't get impatient, don't get flustered, and just relax and have fun, because, you know, you may lose a couple of points here, you may get down by a little bit, but until that 6 minutes is over and the match, that final whistle blows, anything can happen. I've seen kids up by 10 or 12 points get thrown to their back and get pinned, or get cradled up and pinned and end up losing. So they just don't give up, relax, stay focused, do your moves. Don't, you know, you control the tempo, you control the pace, and don't get in your head. That's the biggest thing, is when in names, they think of the names. Oh, this kid did this kid did that. You know, with social media and the internet now, everybody knows everybody from the other schools and the competition. You can research, type in, and you can see their records. You can see what they've done and what tournaments they've done. And so they get in their head, oh, I got this kid, he's so good, blah, 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 blah. And you got to forget about it. You got, you know, if you're beating your head before you step on the mat, you're most likely gonna lose anyhow. And so, yeah, that'd be strong. some of the most important things, I think, from the mental control aspect of it.
So would you say like going into a match with a winning mentality is probably like the best they can do, or like stay
well, absolutely. I mean, go in there with attitude and confidence that you're going to wrestle your best, and you have a chance. You're going to win this match. I'm going to win this match, and if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. But going into the match defeated already, or scared of who you're wrestling, is a terrible way to start off. So, but whether you're winning the match or losing the match during the match time, you can't get in your head that the match is over, and then start doing crazy stuff.
All right. So, would you say that a kid's talent or a kid's work ethic matters more in high school wrestling?
Work ethic.
I agree.
I've seen some talented, physically talented, athletic kids just don't reach their potential because of their work ethic. And then again, I've told you, I've seen some kids that we walk in that room freshman year that lack the physical talent, but have the work ethic to get to where they want to be and be very successful. So, I think the work ethic is definitely, I would take a hard worker over a strong athlete every single time, because those guys want to get better. They're going to work hard and they're going to improve no matter what.
Okay.
How do you motivate kids who might want to quit?
Oh gosh, I mean, same way I would. Nowadays it's be patient. Everybody wants to be good right away. They come in there with this. I'm going to walk in there. I'm going to be so good. I'm so strong. I'm this. I'm athletic. I did a little bit of this when I was younger. I'm going to be good. I'm going to be good. And it is hard. It's a whole different ball game than a lot of other sports. Like I said, you can take one of those talented athletes and put pads on him and show him a couple things, or he's naturally fast, give him a ball, let him run and outrun people and have some success. But in wrestling, you've got to be patient. You got to trust the process. You got to go and learn the technique. And sometimes that is what those kids need. When they come in there and they try it and they're like, oh, this is harder than I thought. This is not as easy as I thought. I thought I would be better. You've got to relax. You've got to slow things down. You got to learn, trust it, be patient, because it's not going to come right away. You're not going to be good first month you wrestle. First year you wrestle, you're not going to be good. It's going to take time. And if you can get them to buy into that patience and in the work, like the off-season work, we started open mats, right up, the season just ended at, March 7th. We got back from the state tournament, and we've been already back on the mats wrestling. And it's like, this is the time where we can really learn. Those guys that are motivated, trying to get a head start, and just keep learning to get better, are going to, show that work ethic we talked about, and they're working to get better by next year. Their success is going to come a lot faster because they're being patient. They're learning the material. They're not just, coming and going and just hoping that they're going to be good. So, if they want to quit, it's just, I try to tell them to be patient, give it time, give it a season at least, see how you do it at the end of the season. If it's something you want to do, continue to work and get better, because, I was in that boat. Like I said, I quit. I quit my freshman year at the beginning. After a few weeks or a month, I can't remember the time frame, but I was just like, I'm glad I got that talk by coach to, be patient, come back. It'll come to you. It'll get there, and it did.
Nice. So, what's the hardest thing to teach high school wrestlers, beginners or people going into from middle school?
There's a lot. Well, old habits, one thing. Breaking old habits. Because you get a lot of kids that have had, some kids that dabbled in middle school or elementary wrestling, and, they roll around and have some success. But when you get to high school, you can't just rely on athleticism and a few moves and to get through at this level. You got to really fundamentally get sound and change some bad habits that you may have developed. But with a brand new wrestler as a freshman that's just walked in and they're a sophomore says, I want to try this, misconceptions about wrestling in their mind, whether it's, related to this type of stuff, or it's just, I think I can do this because I wrestled with my friend in the backyard and I got him down with this, and trying to make stuff up, and it just kind of, backyard wrestling is what I call it all the time. You got to stop that. You got to do the technique right. So it's trying to get them in position, trying to get their leverage in their body and understand their body and how it moves, and get their balance. And so it's a lot of fundamental just understanding your body and getting positions right and learning how to use your body, which is a lot of times the hardest part of the beginners, trying to figure out how to use your body, their leverage.
So do you like coach kids differently depending on like their personality or no?
I've evolved as a coach. I got, in terms of that, when I was young, out of college coaching, I was coached like my high school coach, my college just coached hard, like this, and this, and it was like this. But no, I've evolved. So you definitely have to, a couple of different ways. You got to coach different, not teach things different, but there are some moves that I know are going to work better for a tall, lengthy kid than a short, stocky kid. I don't want to teach a short, stocky kid, an ankle pick on somebody who's 2 feet taller than him, right? So, it's possible if he gets in position right, he could hit it, but there's moves that relate better to different bodies and different styles. So the person, we adjust the coaching to body styles and the personality styles, how we approach or how we coach. I got some kids that I can yell in their face, poke them in the chest, and they'll just respond good, and they're like, yes, sir, I got you. And they'll some kids cower down and just don't have that same response. So yeah, I definitely have to coach kids differently from a hard level of coaching to the technical level of coaching.
So how do you handle possible like attitude problems in the locker room?
We're fortunate that we don't have a lot of attitude, at least towards us coaches. Most of the kids are pretty respectful, but we do have kids with hot tempers, short tempers, and we've gotten some little scuffles in the wrestling room and on the wrestling mat with other opponents and stuff. And so, again, they've got to realize with the rules, at least in competition-wise, you get penalized for throwing a punch, or pushing somebody. This is how you can be out for 6 weeks. So we got to remind kids, don't ruin it or lose all your points in a tournament because you got ejected and have to sit for 6 weeks, especially late in the season because it takes you out of postseason. When it comes to wrestling and practice, we need good, hard, aggressive practice. You need to be, battling and working hard. If it gets a little out of control, we separate kids. We'll talk to them, see what's going on, why are they like that. If we got to separate them out for a couple of days or put them in different groups, we'll do that. But usually, we have a pretty close-knit group of kids, and we don't have a bunch of different, little cliche cliques and groups that fight and argue and fuss like that. It's not like some of these other teams where they have these internal battles. Yeah. We all grind together. I mean, we're on the mat, we're rolling around with each other, we're sweating on each other, we're beating up on each other, we condition together. We're in that one little 40 by 40 room. We can't get spread out over a baseball, soccer field, football field, and we're all right there. I mean, you can't escape each other really. So we learn to get along. I tell them all the time, every year, you don't have to be best friends with each other, but your teammates, you want to get along with each other. Any problems, bring it to us. We'll sort it out.
What are the biggest mistakes you see freshmen make?
Oh gosh, the biggest one in terms of wrestling. Standing up straight, not being in the stance, not fighting right when it comes to, wrestling, not sprawling when somebody's shooting down the bottom, reaching back. I mean, you guys may not understand all of what I'm saying right now, but these are all bad positions that you need to be in. Again, going back to that first question about, what the biggest challenge in the body, where the body needs to be with wrestling. It's not a natural form and position for bipedal humans, right? We're supposed to be standing up straight, walking, but when you're wrestling, you're crouched over, your knees are bent, your elbows are in, so it puts a lot of toll on your lower back and your legs and stay in position and move. So you got to train your bodies to stay that position when you're in good form. And so getting out of position and out of form is biggest thing they're always struggling with, because they want to stand up straight when their back gets sore, and it's like when they stand up straight, open their legs up and they get taken down, they get attacked. So and getting them conditioned. Learn how to.
I just kind of have a follow-up question on the positions part. Would you say that when those kids get in those bad positions, do you see a lot their opponents go on the attack a lot when they get in that spot?
Good opponents will. Good opponents, yeah. If they're a higher level wrestler, or average, above average wrestler, they've been wrestling with some experience. They recognize that, and when we teach it too. When a kid stands up, you should be level changing and attacking. Somebody reaches back, you step out, throw a half. All these things, good coach should be teaching their wrestlers. So when they get in those positions or they see their opponents do them, they fire off and attack.
So how do you build confidence in shy or anxious wrestlers?
Build confidence, encouragement, making sure that they get matches at their own level. In my early coaching at Childs, we had smaller teams. We'd have freshmen come out and they would be the only kid for that weight class. So what we call throwing them to the wolves, right? You're a varsity kid, and now you're a freshman, never wrestled before, and you're wrestling varsity, and you may run across some other kids who are first-year kids on teams, but then you might also run into a state placer or a state champ from another team. And when you get beat up a whole lot in that sense of varsity, when you're not really ready for it, that can be demoralizing. And it definitely is going to kill your confidence. So what we try to do is limit that amount of possibilities. We have a lot more JV events, a lot more younger second string events, I call them too, because we're all one team. We don't have two separate practices. One at JV varsity and you guys separate. This guy's coaching. All the coaches are in there coaching all of them. Sometimes we separate practices to work on specific techniques for the younger guys, but we're all practice, under the same roof and the same team. So I like to say we got our first string, we got our second string. And so we try to make sure that our young guys who are new get a lot of matches against other young guys that are new. And they may fill in some spots at varsity and get their butts beat up a little bit, but they're also going to get competition at their level that they can win and show that they are improving and feel like they're improving and keep their confidence up instead of just going 0-25 and, not coming back next year when they actually have the potential to be successful. They just, burn out the confidence first year.
Nice. So, how can you, tell if a kid, has potential, early on when they start wrestling?
Well, it depends on the potential because we go back to work ethic versus natural talent. I see kids physically, they've got this physical tools. But if they don't have the work ethic and desire to be successful, it's just potential, sitting there, wasted potential. So it's real hard. I'll tell you what. Now, some kids come in and they've got some background in wrestling or some background in jiu-jitsu and things like that. And you see the potential because of how they move. Again, their body position, their stance, their balance, their mobility, their leverage. They understand fundamental body stuff. And you're like, I can work with this. I've got the tools to work with it. And you can see them and watch them progress and get better throughout the season and throughout their high school career. Some kids, like I said, you look at them like, oh, I don't know about the potential of this kid. But then they surprise you when they because by the time after a freshman, they get to the weight room, they start coming to off-season stuff, they work hard, their work ethic kicks in. And then by senior year, you're like, there's that untapped potential that we didn't see as a freshman. I love that. Love to see that.
Nice. So I'm gonna move forward, the stories you've made as a wrestling coach and behind the scenes. So what's the craziest match you've coached in high school?
Oh, gosh.
Surprise you and just had you on
Do you
out
have
of your
a whole
mind?
book for it?
There's a bunch. I mean, there have been some crazy ones that are not so good, crazy ones that are good. In terms of just craziness that's not really good but kind of crazy, we had a tournament at Childs, Capital City Classic, a number of years ago, 8 or 10 years ago. And we had one of those physical specimen talented kids that came out as a junior, but he was this freak athlete, strong. And we're just trying to show him a few moves to get him through. He might have been a senior, might have just been, but he was in a weight class that he didn't know a lot, but he was strong and athletic. And he was wrestling a kid kind of like him from a school in Georgia. And they went to just almost a street fight in the middle of the match, to the point where they were throwing each other into the bleachers. Their coach was running up to me, wanting to fight me on the mat. I was about to fight him on the mat. It was just a chaotic scene. I mean, chairs were getting picked up. Kids are, it was a crazy, chaotic match. I'll never forget that match, how it went down. So it was pretty crazy and wild. We finished the match. Our kid won the match. Our coach wasn't happy. Again, we almost got in a fist fight, me and him in the middle of our gym, but it didn't happen. And so that was a crazy one. Another one I can think of on a positive end was even my son as a freshman. He wrestled through middle school, started in elementary school, and he came out weighing about 100 pounds. He's a 106 pounder his freshman year, and he was undersized, but he was scrappy and he was learning a lot. And we got to this regional tournament, and he had to wrestle this kid from Colombia. We wrestled this kid 5 times this year. We just kept running at other tournaments, plus district duels, all these other stuff. And this kid was a senior, 106 pounders, just a short, stocky little senior, just a little kid, but a strong 18-year-old. And Garrett was just 14 years old, and the kid always got the edge on Garrett. He always beat him. And then to qualify for states, Garrett had to beat that kid, and he beat him at the regional. So it was just like, that was a really good, exciting, crazy match, because it was the first time he beat that kid, and it was qualified for state.
Wow. So, like, what's the funniest thing a kid has done at practice or like during a match?
Oh gosh, during practice, we got some silly kids, man, that either before practice or after practice, because we're all business during practice, so there's not a lot of funny stuff. Well, it could be. It depends on what you consider funny too. I mean, I've had kids, one kid still come up there and start talking to me, and then slip up behind me and hit a tabletop on me or something. That they do crazy stuff to each other, goof off a little bit. I don't know what you consider funny. I mean, what I consider funny, and we got some that can't control their bodily function sometimes. So in the middle of like a teaching technique or something, you just hear some farts ripping or something, and it kind of makes me laugh too. I mean, it's in the middle of something, everybody chuckles and laughs, but I don't know, man. Just they're silly, they're goofy and silly, and have a good time. So there's so many funny things that just happen throughout the years and practices. It's hard to keep up with a lot of it.
Yeah.
What is the most emotional win or loss in your career?
Gosh, most emotional loss in career as a high school, as a high school wrestler was probably my state tournament first round. Back then it was a whole different formula. It was follow the leader, single elimination. You had to, if you lost, the kid that beat you had to make it to the finals for you to be able to wrestle back for 3rd or 4th place. So it wasn't double elimination. So I was beating a kid in the first round of the state tournament my senior year, and I ended up giving up a 5-point move in the last 10, 12 seconds and lost by a point. And that kid had to win to go on to for me to stay in, and he ended up losing to a 2-time state champ from South Dade the next round. So that was probably my devastating, because I only had that one chance. And again, looking back at those failures, I had one match, made a mistake, I got beat, that kid got beat, I was out of the state tournament, so I didn't get to go on any further. And so that was real. I didn't have a chance. Right now we got double elimination. They placed to 8, and I didn't have even a chance to fight my way back and kind of rectify that situation. So that was really devastating. High school, we've had some really close dual meets, and as a loss. And one of the most recent ones I can think of is just a few years ago. We tied Lincoln in the dual meet, and then it starts going down to the rule book, to criteria. And they had 14 wrestlers. We only had, I think, 12 wrestlers. We had 2 forfeits, and so we gave them 12 points in forfeits. So we're down 12-0 to begin with, and then we ended up tying them. And then you go to criteria, and you start looking down all this stuff like, who had more team points or who had more penalty points in this. So you get down to the criteria that said whoever had more forfeits, less forfeits wins. They didn't have any forfeits, so they got the victory on that. So that was really frustrating when you lose a close dual meet like that, just because I didn't fill my weight class or have a body for those weight classes that they did. We won more matches, but that's not how the wrestling rule book. It doesn't matter how many matches you win. Overall, it matters at that point. Did you fill all the weight classes? So that was a rough loss to take. Lose dual meets because of not having a full lineup, even though you won more matches.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
So was there like a certain wrestler who totally like surprised you with their growth, and like what happened with them?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Addison, I brought him up earlier, going from.
All right.
I know, I saw that.
So sorry about that. We're back. So back to that question. What's a wrestler who totally surprised you with their growth, and like what happened with their career after that?
Yes. like I said, one of them, like I said, was Addison, with the growth that he had over the 4 years, to become a region champion, state qualifier. He went on, didn't wrestle in college, and turned into, did some other stuff. He was doing real successful, work in financial field right now. But we have, I'm trying to think of who just really stands out that's, in recent years that look back and just say, I mean, it's hard to say, just there's so many of them, because it really, when you start from scratch as a freshman and what you do in essentially 3.5 years, because you don't get a full year, freshman year, and season ends halfway through your senior year, so it's not even really a full 4 years. So what they've done, is that thing on?
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look black there. There's really a lot. I'd have to really kind of think about it.
I knew a couple wrestlers right now, like Luke Pickles. He was pretty good. He was pretty good.
Yeah, he came a long ways too. He came a long ways in his 4 years that he was there. Him and Langston both.
Yeah.
Langston even had to take a year off. Langston came out as a sophomore, didn't wrestle as a junior, wrestled as a senior, and he actually did really well in just a short period of time that he was on the mat. So he worked hard. He had a good work ethic, and he had the physical tools and talent there as well. We got to have 4 full years with him from 9th grade through senior year. We would have had a lot more time to work with him. He could have been even better. So
yeah.
Have you ever had a whole season go wrong but still learn something big from that?
Yeah, that season I talked about earlier. Like I said, I won't say the whole season went wrong. We had a lot of good growth. We learned a lot. Kids got better, and since then it's just we've been on that was the lowest of the low, and everything else is back up here, kind of up and down. But that year, it was a lot of learning, a lot of self-reflect as a coach and what I'm doing and what I need to change, and just had to tell myself too, trust, be patient, trust the process. These kids are going to get there. It was just a rough. We had a couple of rough, tournaments and season there. So, but it learned a lot.
Yeah. So what's one of it's a weird question. What's one of the weirdest drills you've ever made high school kids do? I kind of push them out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, we do a lot of odd stuff sometimes. I know one drill for core strength that the kids think is really odd and weird is you get on the hands and knees in a referee's position, and the other kid turns, faces the other way, sits on his back, facing separate directions, locks their legs inside their thighs, and do sit-ups. Oh. So they go all the way back, put their head on the mat. So the bottom guy has to hold all the weight as they're leaning back over, and they got to touch their head on the mat and then do a sit-up all the way up. So both guys are getting a really heck of a workout, but it's a really weird position. It looks very weird.
How many reps per set?
It just depends on what we feel like, how many whistles we blow. So
have you ever had to kind of had a laughing moment of having a heavier person sit on top of a lighter person?
Yeah, they're usually about the same weight, but sometimes there's a 10 or 15 pound difference between them, so the bottom guys really get the raw end of the deal. I mean, we do other conditioning things that are kind of silly. We call them girlfriend carries, where you hold them and you're running and jogging with girlfriend carries, or piggyback runs. But like I said, there's some just odd, weird positions to begin with.
What's the best underdog story you've ever seen on the team?
The best one. Gosh. Just from this year, we'll just say this year, because it's the most recent in my mind. Toby Trumbauer qualified for state, made it to the state tournament. He was definitely an underdog this season. Started off a little slow with his record and his wins, getting back on the mat after football and being off of the mat for a number of months. And so started off a little slow, but ended up peaking at the right, won a district title, got first, went to the region, seeded in the top 4. Then was able to beat some kids that on paper he wasn't supposed to beat. He wasn't, supposed to be in the running to qualify for state, and so for him to get there and then, qualify was a big underdog story for this year.
So just based off that question, do you have like a favorite move, like a wrestling move?
Oh man,
in general.
In high school, one of my favorite moves was a low single takedown, where it's just a quick little shot from getting low and attacking ankles and moving from there. Once I got on top, one of my favorite was different cradle series that I love to do. On the bottom, it was always escapes or switches. Stuff. But neutral was, my favorite was always probably a low single. Then I would transition to singles and did a bunch of different things. But the low single was always my favorite. I was always quick at that.
So was there ever like a certain moment in wrestling that taught you something outside of the sport, like in life?
Gosh, there are a lot of life lessons. And for me, I say personally, is the trials and ups and downs, the emotional roller coaster that wrestling shows you kind of prepares you for the same ones you're going to see in life. You're going to have ups and downs just like you do on the mat and in practice. And if what I like about these kids is coaching at the high school level, some of them have some of those ups and downs before high school, but most are pretty average lives, and they didn't hit those ups and downs that you see in the real world. And they can prepare themselves for that emotional roller coaster by the wins and losses, the highs and lows in wrestling. I think it really prepares you in high school. I hit some of the lowest spots right out of high school because of wrestling, and I said that loss at the state tournament shut me out of wrestling for a solid year right out of high school. Now I went and wrestled in college. It wasn't the year right after I graduated. I took a year off of wrestling completely, and then I found the love for it again, and I missed it, and I went back to it. But having that low and the ups and downs in wrestling, definitely prepares you for the real world, the ups and downs you're going to face with relationships up and down over the years, problems with, maybe work or loss of parents and siblings, ups and downs, being able to bounce back and recover from that stuff. It's a good life lesson.
So going on to like mind games and like strategies, how do you like read a teen wrestler before like a match?
Well, it's hard to reading the individual before you wrestle them. Yeah. We try to read most of our wrestlers by film, watching them, knowing what they do, what to expect from them, what are they like, their favorite moves, or what they do more often, and try to wrestle around that or work around that. But if we're at a tournament and you just never seen them before, and some kids can put on a show. They got that confidence and that that bouncing up and down. You look at them and you're like, oh gosh. And take him to see, oh, he's got a tattoo. Reading the kid, oh man, he's gonna be tough. Look how he's acting. But a lot of times it's just a show. I tell the kids, wrestle your opponent. Don't wrestle the name. Don't wrestle their face. It doesn't matter. You can read them and see how they move around and watch them a little bit, but you settle it on the mat.
Okay. So, can you tell, a kid's mindset, just from warm-ups and just from, before they're getting into a match?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. You can see if they're focused. You can always tell if they're really focused and concentrating on the match, if they're just kind of going through the motions because they know they're supposed to do it or they were told to do it. If the kids are, we got long days, so you got 4 or 5 matches in a day, and if it's an IBT, you may be sitting in the stands or you're waiting for your weight class to be called. And, those kids that get up 2 or 3 weight classes before it's their turn, and they're moving around and they're working up and they got their headphones on and they're focused and they're concentrating, thinking about what they're going to do. You can tell where their mindset is and where it should be. Well, rather than those who are sitting in the bleachers still, they're laying down, they're taking a nap, and I got to go up and say, hey, they're on 113 and you're a 120 pounder. Get up and start warming up. You can tell their mindset's not where it should be, and they need a little extra encouragement to go get ready, because you walk out there half asleep and not ready physically or mentally, you're not going to be in the mindset and physical condition that you need to be.
What would you say is the weirdest or most creative move you've ever seen a high school wrestler do?
Weirdest or creative move? Well, we've got kids that are super flexible. They got like triple, quadruple jointed, whatever, and those, they just move in positions that aren't normal.
I'm sorry, quadruple joint?
I don't know if it's a real thing or not, but I'm just saying they're super flexible and they can take their elbow and put it around on their far ear and stuff like that. So I've seen kids like that are in that position. They scramble and squirm their way out of positions and do stuff that just normally shouldn't be done. It could be a takedown. It could be on the bottom, just fighting out of a weird position where you think it would have broken somebody else's body part or dislocated something, and they squirm out of it. Ain't no real name for any of these things, but it's really, really funky things that can happen in that sport. You get tied up in pretzel, like you're all twisted up, and some guys squirm out of stuff, and it's really weird.
So, like, what mental edge separates like the good wrestlers from the champions or like the state competitors?
Well, the champions, like I said, they have a mindset that they're going to win. They're going to score first. No one's going to hold me down. I'm going to dominate. You got to have that mindset overall about each match. And I'm not saying going into that over a certain kid like I did. I've wrestled that kid a bunch of times. I've got this. Not be over cocky or over confident or arrogant about an individual, but with the mindset that I'm going to go out there, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to beat this guy. He's not going to score on me, I'm going to score on him, or he's not going to hold me down, I'm going to escape, I'm going to hold him down. You're having that confidence level and knowing that what you trained for is going to allow you to do that. That really helps out a lot. Those guys, they train, they prepare themselves. It's second nature to them. They know their body's they trust their body, they trust the process, they trust what they're capable of. And win or lose, they're able to have that mentality going into it. And the hardest thing is getting over a loss at that higher level and be able to bounce back and get that same mentality for the next match, which is a lot of times struggle. And the elite wrestlers can do that. They get that mental, and they fight their way back, and they get right mentally. And some may be done for the weekend. That one loss may do such a mental toll that they just don't recover mentally, and then they end up losing out and could have been the better wrestler. Could be the better wrestler than the others, but he's just not mentally prepared.
Do different personalities handle stress differently on the mat?
Oh, absolutely. Some guys collapse mentally. Their personalities, and some guys handle the stress and don't let it bother them. If you're relaxed, you're cool, calm, collected, and more nonchalant, and don't show the stress. Maybe they don't show the stress as much, but you can see it in their wrestling that they're not panicking, they're not freaking out. But some guys, overanalyze. They overanalyze and they get down and they lose a point, they lose a position, and they start to freak out. And yeah, you can definitely tell that with the personalities.
So, do you ever focus on strategy more than moves in practice?
No, not more. The moves we train, because again, we want to get our body second nature. We really want to react and respond to a position and a situation and a pressure that we're taking. Now we do take time to talk mentally. Usually at the beginning of practice, we'll talk a little strategy or talk about what we need to do, or towards the end of practice, as we're wrapping up, we're cooling down and resting, start talking about the tournament coming up or the match coming up, or what strategies we need to, mental strategies, be prepared to versus who we're wrestling.
So how do you stay ahead of like other teams during a match?
During a match, an individual match, well, it's an individual sport and a match sport. So if it's a dual meet where it's us versus, Leon, we're definitely looking at matchups. As a coach, I'm looking at, okay, I've got my lineup, but we can put multiple kids in at weight classes, weigh them in, and then we can bump and shift the weight class or two. So my normal kid that wrestles 120 pounds, I might bump him to 126 for this matchup versus Leon, or if I'm wrestling another team, I keep him down at 120, or whatever the weight class is. We can bump and shift. So there's a lot of strategy as a coach on where we can get the best matchup to maximize the points and score more points to win as a team. But if you look at it from an individual standpoint, once they're on the mat, there's not much we can do. We can hope that there's a break in action and we can kind of coach from the corner and tell them, hey, this is happening, you need to do this, think about this or keep an eye on this or watch this. He's going to do this. But we can't call timeouts. We can't call breaks and say, oh, we got 30 seconds to go talk and strategize in the middle of a match to prepare for what, the final part of the match. So once they're out there, we got to kind of have a game plan set as we go in, and then the wrestlers got to be, have enough mental wrestling awareness and been in the experience and having experience in that situation where if I got to adjust, I know what to do. So that's a struggle with our young guys because they don't have the experience, but the older guys oftentimes know.
All right, well, as a coach, have you ever been outsmarted by one of your high school wrestlers?
Outsmarted by one of them? Oh, in what way? I'm not the smartest kid, the smartest person in the room. I'll tell you that much. There's a lot of kids that are smarter than me. But in terms of wrestling, outsmarted in wrestling, no, I've never been out. I don't think I've been outsmarted in wrestling when it comes to technique. Now, kids may find something like, see, I'm constantly watching film and videos and watching other coaches around the country, whether they're college coaches or club coaches, and trying to learn new things and tweaks and stuff like that, always growing as a coach. And some kids may see something and bring it to me and say, hey, what about this? You think this would be good? And I look at it and they show it to me. We try it a little bit. I'm like, I think that's something that we could apply or we could try. They might bring stuff to the table. I don't know if they've ever outsmarted me in any way.
So going off life lessons, what's your biggest lesson you've learned from coaching high school kids?
Coaching high school kids, patience. Patience is one, a big one. I've got to be patient because as a coach, I want them to be as successful as they can, and probably more at a faster pace than they can, than they want to. Like I said earlier, kids want to be successful right away, but I want them to be successful right away too. But I know that's not going to happen. So I got to be patient with their ability, with their growth, with a lot of times them just personally and their personalities and differences, and trying to understand where they're coming from and how they are, how they're raised, and just all that kind of stuff. So just being patient as a coach in that sense of coaching and in wrestling.
So what do you want one thing wrestlers to remember years later about your coaching?
Well, I hope they have fun. I hope they understand that I wanted the best for them all. I always want them to be, so I drive them. I'm hard on them, but I'm hard because I see potential. I want them to succeed. I want them to have as much success as I can get to them in the short period of time I have them. But I want them to enjoy it and have fun, and hope that they understand that and they know that that's what I was there for. That wasn't to pad, my record or pad my stats or, say, look at what I did, but just to make them a better person, a better member of society, have fun, and know that I wanted just as much success for them as they want for themselves.
Nice.
I want to go back to the personal success part. Would you say that when it's harder to coach kids when you want success for them more than they want success for themselves? Would you say it's harder to coach them and bring them to a better mental level, or?
No, I don't think it's hard to coach them, because I'm going to coach them all hard and the same. Now, I got to be patient, like I said, because it may not come. But sometimes they don't have that same desire. So a lot of kids don't wrestle just to be a great wrestler. They wrestle because they have fun, they like their teammates, they have some success, and they're good with being a 50-50 wrestler. And that's hard for me to stomach sometimes, because I want them all to be undefeated.
State champions, yeah.
I want them all to be state champions. But some guys, and I've had to accept that over the course of my coaching, is that some kids don't have that same desire as me. So I'm thankful that they're doing it. I love the sport. I want them to enjoy the sport. And if they're still there and they're only winning 50% of their matches, but they're having fun and they're still competing and they like the teammates and the camaraderie, and it's something that they're going to remember for the rest of their life, I'm okay with that.
And I'm gonna ask one last question. Are you grateful of how far you've come along the way? You became from a wrestler, then quitting, then going back, and then now a wrestling coach. Are you so grateful for everything?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. wrestling is, there's a shirt that says wrestling is life. The rest is just the details. I mean, and that, it's really, really kind of explains what I've only known forever, since 14 years old. So it's, I'm grateful for the sport, grateful for the relationships I've had over the years with my wrestlers, the parents, the coaches that I've got to coach with and against. I mean, wrestling coaches are a close-knit group as well in a lot of areas. I mean, some of my best friends here in Tallahassee are my opponents. I mean, they're my competitors. We yell at each other. We hate each other on the wrestling mat, but we go on a boat, we go fishing, we go hang out and go to concerts and stuff like that outside of this. And so, wrestling has given me a whole lot. You sacrifice a lot for it too, but I think about when I do retire from coaching and teaching and, the free time I'm going to have, which is really weird, that I haven't had since I'm 25 years old, since I've been a child, and I'm about to be 48. So, the year-long, wrestling, Christmas breaks, summers, not, doing stuff that just having the free time to go do stuff that I haven't done very often in a long time. It's kind of weird to think about, but I've got a number of years before that's coming up, but still, I mean, it's given me more than it's taken away. So yeah, I'm definitely thankful for it.
I'm glad this has become amazing for your life. I know me and Brooks were bowling with you for a while, so that's
a new experience for me too.
That's
a new experience.
Yeah.
And then I remember I joined wrestling for a little while, but then I had soccer as well at the same time.
Yeah.
But I love the experience that I had enjoyed during the time. I would have 100% stick to it, but I just love that you have taught all these kids so many amazing life lessons on and off the mat, and I hope you continue to do it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. I've got a number of years left in me still.
And thank you for taking your time to come on this podcast as well. Let us interview you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks. Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, man.
Anytime.
All right, before we go, I think this guy's got to put the belt on or shoulder it or something. Come on.
One on the
shoulder
belt, just over the
champ.
shoulder here.
Anyway, yes, sir. Coach
There we
Marschka,
go.
everybody.
Coach Marschka.
There we go.
End of introductions like, I'm Brooks.
All right, I'm Brooks.
I'm Aaron.
Coach Marschka.
I'm Shabam,
I'm AJ.
and we're out. Peace.
That was nice. I love that ending right there.
Oh, we gotta do the thumbnail.
Thumbnail.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.